Terrorism is not sustained only by organizations. It is driven by individuals who recruit members, arrange funding, supply weapons, and plan attacks. Recognizing this, India has strengthened its anti-terror law to target not just terrorist organizations, but also the individuals behind them. In this lecture, let's understand this important development. Hello everyone, my name is Rajni Jha. Welcome to Drishti IAS. Let's have a look at the news first. The Ministry of Home Affairs has designated 23 Pakistan-based individuals as terrorists under Section 35 of UAPA, which is Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967. These individuals are linked to terrorist organizations such as 𝐘𝐨𝐻𝐿, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jamaat-ud-Dawa, and the Resistance Front. They are also accused of training, recruitment, infiltration, financing, arms supply, drone-based weapon delivery, and planning terrorist attacks in India. Now, what is UAPA? UAPA, or the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967, is India's primary anti-terror law, and the objective of this anti-terror law is to prevent unlawful and terror activities, to protect India's sovereignty and security, and also to enable legal action against both terrorists and terrorist organizations. Now, what is Section 35? Section 35 gives central government the power to declare an individual or to designate an individual as a terrorist if it believes that this individual is involved in terrorism. This is called being designated as a terrorist or designation as a terrorist. Now, this actually changed in 2019. So, what changed in 2019? Before 2019, under UAPA, only terrorist organizations were designated as terrorist organizations or terrorists, not individuals. But suppose a terrorist organization is designated as terrorist organization, the members could easily make another organization and continue their terrorist attacks or terrorist activities. This was a loophole. In order to address this loophole, in 2019, an amendment was made, after which now even individuals can be designated as terrorists, not just the organizations. So this allows the authority to act directly against the individual itself, even before the organization is officially banned. Now, why is this important? This is important because once an individual is designated as a terrorist, agencies like NIA, which is National Investigation Agency, freezes or blocks financial assets of that individual. Now see, you must know that in order to carry out terrorist organization, in order to carry out terrorist activities or unlawful activities, financial backing is required by the terrorist organizations or even the terrorist person itself, the individual itself. So what they do is they simply freeze or block the financial assets, seize their property linked to terrorism, and restrict access to funds and financial networks, thereby blocking their financial backbone. At the same time, they also impose restrictions on arms-related transactions. We just saw at the beginning of this lecture that even drone-based weapon delivery system has been started. So they impose restrictions on any arms-related transaction or weapons-related transaction, and they strengthen investigation and prosecution against the individual itself. So the terrorist activities at all these levels, multiple levels, are targeted, thereby making it more effective. Next, why is this significant for India, especially India's security? Because modern terrorism is not just about physical attack. It is about financial networks like we talked about. Second, you must have heard about recruitment happening through digital platforms. So that also comes under this unlawful activity. Then cross-border infiltration, in which a terrorist or an individual moves to another nation, crosses border for hostile activities or terrorist activities. That is cross-border infiltration. Next, drone-based delivery system of weapons. We have already seen that also happens. This also comes under this. And there is logistical support. So modern terrorism is not just about the physical attack. It involves everything. And this step is important, especially for India's security, so that mainly cross-border infiltration could be stopped and drone-based weapon delivery could be stopped. Because now we can stop the individual itself. We don't have to wait for the organization to be banned, right? Which is why it is easier for this step to be stopped, cross-border infiltration to be stopped or at least prevented. Next, what are the implications of this step? First, strengthening India's counter-terrorism framework. How does it strengthen India's counter-terrorism framework? Because this amendment now, because I can focus or simply target an individual as a terrorist, this enables preventive action. What is preventive action? Somebody needs to be stopped on the basis of suspicion itself, then we use preventive action. So now, because an individual can be targeted if the person is involved in terrorist activities, so this enables preventive action against that individual rather than waiting for the entire organization to be banned. So this stops terrorist activity or unlawful activity or hostile activities way before they could have happened or before it is too late. So this dismantles terrorist networks more effectively and more efficiently. Next, as we discussed, financial disruption of terrorism. Modern terrorism depends heavily on financial backing or funding. So by freezing assets or blocking financial transactions, the government aims to attack the backbone of terrorism itself, to weaken the operational capacity of terrorism by weakening the financial or funding, the financial backbone or funding itself. Next is national security. How? We have just seen that many of these designated individuals are accused of recruitment, infiltration, cross-border terrorism, and drone-based weapon supply. So this move itself, like I told you earlier, will attack this cross-border terrorism because now I can simply focus on the individual on the very basic level. So this reflects India's increasing focus on tackling the cross-border terrorism itself and also the weapon-based, this weapon supply, drone-based weapon supply or any arms deal for that matter. Next is, what are the concerns? The major concern is due process. The major concern is due process. What is that? There should be fair legal procedure, proper procedure before you target an individual as a terrorist. Proper procedure, fair procedure, legal procedure should be followed before targeting an individual as terrorist or before targeting an individual in the preventive detention attack, in the preventive detention action. Why? Otherwise, there will be arbitrary punishment. Maybe somebody who is innocent could be punished if due process is not followed. So this is one thing. Second, individual rights should be there. So even if an individual has been designated as a terrorist, that individual should have sufficient legal backing or legal framework for him to challenge that designation, for him to challenge that, oh, I'm not a terrorist, for him to challenge this designation of being a terrorist itself. Now, before we move to the last part of our session, I would like to tell you that we have our live online classes from Karol Bagh and Noida Center in English and Hindi medium, and this is IAS GS Foundation course, wherein you will get 400 plus structured classes, printed notes, mains capsule series, prelims practice book test, and also the evaluation of 500 mains answers. So if you want to have a comprehensive preparation for your examination, do join us. You can call on this number 87501 87501. Now we move to the last part of our session, which is prelims based question and mains based question. So in the prelims based question, the question is, with reference to Unlawful Activities Prevention Act UAPA 1967, consider the following statements. First, 2019 amendment to UAPA empowered the central government to designate individuals as terrorists. Second, under Section 35 of the UAPA, only terrorist organizations can be designated as terrorists. And third, once an individual is designated as a terrorist, investigating agencies can take measures such as freezing financial assets and seizing property linked to terrorism. You have to tell me which of these is correct. Options are option A, 1 and 3 only, B, 2 only, C, 1 and 2 only, or D, 1, 2 and 3. So you have to give the answer to this question in the comment section. After this session, I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to answer it correctly. Now let's move to the mains practice question. So the question says, the 2019 amendment to the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act UAPA marked a significant shift in India's counter-terrorism strategy. Discuss. So you have to talk about every part that is given in the question. Now, I know for a fact that this question talks about UAPA, right? And in UAPA also, it talks especially about the 2019 amendment, the first line itself. So my question, my introduction should start here. As I tell you in every class, that your introduction and your conclusion both should reflect the question itself so that it becomes a complete circle. So the introduction itself, I'll talk about UAPA, what is UAPA, and what is the 2019 amendment, what is the section 35 of UAPA. This I will explain in the introduction itself. Then in the body, what would you write in the body? It says it marked a significant shift in India's counter-terrorism strategy. So you have to talk about how it has made the shift in the counter-terrorism strategy. How has it made the shift in the counter-terrorism strategy? By simply because of this section 35 and this amendment, now an individual can be targeted, right? An individual can be designated as terrorist. So that is the shift that is in this that has helped in counter-terrorism strategy. This is the shift. Next, now only organizations will not be banned. That point also you will explain here, because that is also a shift. And it prevents individuals from escaping the liability by joining new organizations. Like I told you that, let's say an organization is banned, an individual can simply, all the members can simply make new organization and escape the liability of previous organization and can continue with their terrorist activities. So all these 3 points you'll mention in the shift. This is the shift now. What else? What is the significance of it? Now, because of this shift, because of this section 35 and this amendment, these 3 things have happened. But what is the implication of it? What is the significance of it? In that, you will mention how this disrupts the financial backing and logistics, like I explained to you, financial backing and logistics. And at the same time, it also enables freezing of assets, the assets of individuals, right? Seizes the property linked with terrorism. It strengthens the action against cross-border terrorism, cross-border infiltration. You'll mention that also, because that is also the significance because of this amendment. And you can also mention the drone-based weapon delivery system or drone-based terrorism can also be tackled now because of this. So that is a significance. Is there any problem because of this change, this amendment? Yes, there is one concern, which is due process. We discussed the concern is due process. So you'll mention that also, that there should be due process and safeguard for the individual rights, civil liberties. So there should be a balance of national security and individual liberty. Now you're done with the body. And then in conclusion, you'll give a well-rounded conclusion that this has marked the shift, the amendment has marked the shift. But for it to be effective, you need a few more things, which I'll just show you. You can use those words in your answer. So let's have a look at the framework. In the introduction, like I told you, define UAPA and mention this amendment. Then in the body, shift in counter-terrorism strategy, I told you the 3 points that you have to mention. Then the significance, I mentioned few significances of it, right? Then the concern, due process and civil liberties. There has to be a balance between national security and civil liberties. And in the conclusion, the amendment strengthens India's legal framework against terrorism, but its effectiveness will depend on transparent implementation. I usually tell you the words, I usually give you the words that you can use directly in your answers of the conclusion. So keep a note of these words and write the answer using all these bullet points in the framework. So we require transparent implementation, judicial oversight, and protection of constitutional rights. I hope this is clear to all of you. If you have any questions, you can always ask in the comment section below. That's it for today's session. Thank you so much for joining in. Until next time, take care.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.